How did I get my ADHD under control? This is a great question. And when I was recently posed by a commenter here on YouTube, I thought I'd just pop on here and offer an answer, or at least my best understanding of what the answer to it is and what has gone right for me over the last few years to get to where I am. Just to give you a broad background, where I am is I've gone from someone who severely overweight. I weighed 600 pounds. I spent all my days locked in front of a computer voluntarily, either working from home at my desk or playing video games and gorging myself on junk food. I was really acting out a strong desire to escape because to me, the world was too much. Growing up, school was so easy for me. I was told a story of being smart, being brilliant, but I got to a point with school where all of a sudden I just couldn't hack it. And until I got my ADHD diagnosis, I never understood why I went from a straight A student to a dropout in just a few years. ADHD helped me answer that question. And the diagnosis gave me that really significant gift. What I learned, and a lot of these insights came from someone who actually has a great channel here on YouTube. His name is Dr. Russell Barkley. There's fantastic ADHD content. And especially if you are interested in approaching ADHD from a standpoint of what can I do, he has a ton of great answers. And the most important thing that I learned from him is that ADHD is fundamentally is a deficit of executive function. That is the ability for a person to govern their own actions. A person with ADHD will know what they should do, but they won't do it because their governor is ineffective. And that's exactly what happened to me. And I was a student. I knew what I needed to do. I knew the assignments I needed to get done, but I just couldn't do it. I couldn't break it down. I couldn't be accountable with myself. This story all by itself sort of took the stigma off of my past, and that helped. And it helped me retell the story of my failures. I think this is a really important component of getting ADHD under control, is as we understand what the disorder does, to be able to map that understanding onto what we know about ourselves and onto our past experiences, and especially our failures, and start to retell ourselves a different story that instead of being about helplessness and failure is about not having critical insights that you have now that you can do something about. And so I went into my past and I brought up these stories. I remember sitting down and writing about it. I thought about it. I've done videos here about it and reintegrated those experiences with understanding that the problem that I faced back then, it wasn't that I wasn't smart enough. It was that I lacked the capability of sustaining a good intention across time. And this is a subtle thing. As my ADHD has gotten better, the primary thing that I notice as being different is that I don't have to remind myself of stuff. Stuff just comes. Things I need to keep in mind, things I need to keep track of, things I need to be working towards on a day-by-day basis. I don't need to write these things down. I don't need to put them in a schedule. They're just right here. And they're ready for me. And they're in every single moment, every single time I interact with somebody. So when I'm talking to someone and there's something that's on my agenda that I can talk to them about, I remember, oh, and I ask them about the thing. And it happens right there. And that's what life is like for people who don't have ADHD. That was a huge learning for me. Wow, people have this ability. I didn't even know anyone had this ability. As I gained the ability, I began to understand that. And it really is a life changer. It helps put you in the driver's seat of your own life and to be able to understand a problem that you have and work towards a solution over time. Because any hard problem in your life requires time. And time is the enemy if you have ADHD. The way you conquer it, at least getting started, the way I conquered it, is with the tools everyone talks about. It's nothing groundbreaking. Journal, schedule, and to-do lists, right? That's what it breaks down into. For me, a really important component of it was to create a highly repeatable life that had the best of my intentions factored into it. Because my life was so small, I had a huge amount of autonomy over it, and I could decide how a lot of my time was spent during the day. And so I broke it down. I said, okay, here's where I do my work. Here's where I get my chores done. Here's where I go out and get in my walk, my physical activity of the day. Here's when I sit down and play video games, and here's when I have dinner. And I had all these things, not strictly, but roughly put together in a way that if I repeated it every single day, I was happy with the day and I didn't feel deprived of the things that I needed. So I think a really important thing for anyone who feels like they have ADHD, if you have some stability in your life, to take advantage of it and create a highly repeatable lifestyle, whatever that means and whatever that looks like. And that way we can take the strength that people, that non ADHD sufferers have, of being able to take intentions and factor them into our lives over time and make it more literal. Routinize the things that are difficult. Routinize what you eat. Routinize what you do, who you talk to, where you go, what your activities are. Routinize rituals at work, when you check in with your boss, when you are sending emails during the day, how you handle meetings and how you prepare for them. All these things, routinizing them takes the stigma out of them and it reduces the cognitive load in getting them done. And that's the thing that we need as ADHD sufferers, is to reduce the cognitive load of deciding what to do. There's a real sense, I think, by which ADHD can be characterized as sort of permanent, always on decision paralysis. And that sounds like hell, and it is, speaking from experience. So, understanding these things, mapping ourselves onto them, retelling our stories of our past, knowing these insights and taking the stigma off of ourselves and taking off both the victim and victimizer roles out of our pasts. We neither hurt ourselves or were hurt by ourselves. We just did the best we could. And here's what happened. And from that, I've learned this. And here's what I'm going to do. Journaling helps. Talking it out helps. And the last thing I'll kind of say about this that I think was really fundamental in helping me get over my ADHD, helping get it under control, was really, really getting my physical health in order. Now, this isn't going to be relevant to every single ADHD sufferer, but to me, it was extremely important. And it played out in a few different ways. When you are heavily overweight, people see you differently. I've especially noticed this in the last year as I've slimmed down into the mid 200s, which is still overweight, but essentially I look like a bigger normal person. Whereas before, I think you look at me first blush and you see a different kind of person, almost like a different species of human is the feeling people get. There's this sort of otherness people have to get over. And when you get to a certain point, you don't need to get over that anymore. And that affects your confidence, that affects your interactions. And doing things that make you confident, I think, have a really positive impact on our ability to structure our interests towards the future, which is, of course, tied into executive function and this whole problem we're talking about. Doing the things that build our confidence while we're routinizing the things about ourselves that are good for us, I think have a really fundamental interplay when it comes to getting ADHD under control. For me, that meant losing a bunch of weight. I also was very fortunate to work with a doctor who helped me identify some stuff about myself that I couldn't look at in a mirror. He looked at my blood work and he said, "Oh, hey, this doesn't look good. Do you want to fix that?" And I said, "Okay, fine." I didn't expect anything to change, but everything changed. I'm not going to get into this. I've done other content on this, but it's about my testosterone levels. And today my testosterone is on the high side of good. And it's given me a ton of energy and focus. And if you're a man, it might be it might be worth checking into. Yeah. I think that those are the high level answers to how I got my ADHD under control and to how maybe give you some ideas of how you could get started or if something that you're already working on, give you some connection and let you know that you're not alone in suffering from this. And the great thing about ADHD is that it is, in a sense, so common. There's even a cultural, I think, component to ADHD where the kinds of technology and habits that we're sort of enculturated to foster this sort of deficit of executive function. It's kind of bonkers, I think. Um, but we can learn from that and we can make our own choices and we can build our own routines and lives and structure our own interests for our best interest. And I highly suggest you do. And I hope you found this useful. My good and excellent friends, please take great care of yourself and be good to each other. And I'll see you very soon.